The Sikha we will be learning is in the Sikha Chelek Hey, and it's a Sikha that's for Vayesheiv. The title is Vayesheiv Yutas Kislev. So the Rebbe starts by saying, "So you do what the Shalosh Rabbi Parsha saying, and we know what the Shalosh writes in our Parsha, meaning a Parsha Vayesheiv. Azala me'adi ashono mashayches bin yoneim to the Parshas Ateirev v'sveren gelehnt in this manim v'chzen meides and chal. All special dates of the year have a connection in their inyan, what they stand for, to the Parshas of the Torah, which comes out that we read them at that time of the year. This also includes any special day that happened after the Parshas were given. You could have thought that maybe when the Parshas were given, there were certain Yom Tovim, so the Parshas were set up that it should fit to those Yom Tovim. But there are certain Yom Tovim that happened later. Nevertheless, the Rebbe says, according to the Shaloh, the Parshas of the Torah have a connection to the special dates, even of those things that happened years after the Parshas were given. So certainly concerning the Kislev, which is also called a Me'ed, because the Lashon of the Shaloh is Me'ad Ashona. The Kislev goes on all the special days, but especially the Kislev, which is called Me'ed, that was the Lashon of the Alter Rebbe, that he said that this is going to be a Me'ed. To me, it's going to be a Me'ed, which means a Yontiv, a special Yontiv. So we understand concerning the Me'ed of the Kislev, which is Chal Hayor, Brei Vashonim, and the Vochim Parsha Vayeshev, the Kislev that comes out that year, meaning the year the Sikha was printed, and most of the years it comes out in the week of Parsha Vayeshev, as a Teichen from the Yontiv is verbunden Marumas in Parsha Vayeshev. That the meaning of what the Kislev stands for is hinted in Parsha Vayeshev. But the Rebbe said, Bashkofer Sheino, aber es nicht nur gefindt man nicht. As a Teichen of Parsha Zlo Mashaychas and Mini Finyut Kislev. At first glance, not only don't we find the connection between Yutas Kislev and what it says in Parshas Vayeshev, but rather the Parsha beteichen hofke from Yutas Kislev. First glance, the meaning of the Parsha, the contents of the Parsha is the opposite of what Yutas Kislev is. Why? Yutas Kislev, the talk is chufshan nit leit zum Alter Rebbe. Yutas Kislev, the day that Alter Rebbe was given his freedom. When the Yom Agula from Terach Chassidus, Keduim Aforsim, and it's the day that Terach Chassidus was redeemed. Again, the Parsha Parshas in our Parsha, which Parsha Vayeshev talks about the beginning of the going down to Golos Mitzrayim. Unnamed from them was Yankov Avinu had geschickt Yosef Meimek Chevron. It starts off when Yankov Avinu sent Yosef to see the brothers. So the Posik says Meimek Chevron, and in order 7 the Rebbe says, look at Rashi. And Rashi says, what does Meimek Chevron mean? He sent him that this is going to fulfill the deep Kavona the Eibush had when he said Geir Yi Zaracho. So this shows that the Parsha is talking about the beginning of this Eimek Chevron, that the Eimek Kavona of the Eibush to go to Golos. And divide Kemeros and look at the further things that says about Yosef's Mechira till Yosef is sold, when he rode on the Mitzrayim, and he was brought down to Mitzrayim, was der Fir zu Heiri, the Lavina Yankov in Mitzrayim, that they brought Yaakov Avinu to Mitzrayim. Medesh says like this: was bring the Moshel. Medesh says that Moshel Gabe Yosef going first and then Yaakov coming after him is a Moshel. The Poroshe Mechleisel Makulin. A cow, they were pulling it to the butcher. It wasn't going. They couldn't schlep it. What do they do? They put a child in front of it. So it followed the child. Even though it didn't want to, but the child, it followed the child. Kach, same thing with Yankov. Yankov in the Roy Leilad Mitzrayim, Yankov is supposed to go to Mitzrayim. He's supposed to go, guy with chains. Hashem said, it's my firstborn child, Yaakov. And I will bring him to Mitzrayim with an embarrassment. I'm going to pull his son in front. And he'll follow against his will, even though doesn't want to do it, he'll still do it. So here we see that when Yosef went to Mitzrayim, that was the reason why Yaakov came to Mitzrayim. And that means that in the Parshas, Vayesheiv talks about going down to Mitzrayim, which is the beginning of Golos Mitzrayim. And Yutas Kislev is the Gula of Mitzrayim, of being in prison. So it's the complete opposite. So the Rebbe says, you could explain the connection based on what we know. As Golos Mitzrayim nicht given al Seinish. Golos Mitzrayim was not a punishment. In order 11, the Rebbe says, even al Penigla, push it. There's nothing to Yaakov and his children did, that they have to be punished. So it's not a punishment. No, verkehrt. The opposite. The tachlis der funny given der vacha ken yezem mechush godel kipshute, the goal. Why they went to Mitzrayim? So should they should be able to go out with great treasure, push physically with all the treasure that they went out with. That's begashmias. Also, the purpose of Golus Mitzrayim was for the Chush Godel to go out with a great Tashabal Ruchnius. What does that mean? The Golus Mitzrayim, Matzugikre de Eden, the Golus Mitzrayim prepared the Eden that when they left Mitzrayim, they were ready to serve Hashem on this mountain, the Leib said to Moshe, which is Matan Torah. So Ken Makabos on the Torah, Matan Torah to be able to receive. So the purpose of Golus Mitzrayim is for the great Aliyah, great special thing that they will get when they come out. The Gashmis Baruchnis. But their union as Golus is nicht an Inje Farzich, but the ganze Kavana Matorah from Golus, and the Ilu was kum durch der Gula from Golus. Now that we said this union, that the Golus is not for its own purpose. It's not a purpose of Golus. But the purpose of Golus is the Ilui, the great elevation that comes through the Gula that comes after the Golus. Is given Begila by Yosef, and Eichvid das wird erzählt die Pshute shel Mikra. That happened by Yosef. By Yosef, you could see how the going down to Mitzrayim, which is the Golus, really is not a Golus. Really, this itself is an Aliyah. Where do we see it? Mechiras Yosef, Mitzrayim is leina bosser gekommen durch Kavanosam abilti ritzuyi for Dacha Yosef. Yosef being sold and going down to Mitzrayim. The way it seems superficially to our flesh eyes came because of the bad intentions that his brothers had. But later was revealed the truth of why he went to Mitzrayim. As David sent us for to give us life. That you should be able to exist and you should be able to be spared because there was a hunger and you'll get food. And he told them, told them, brothers, you didn't bring me here. The Eibusha brought me. In other words, you found out later, not only something that happened later, we found out later that this going to Mitzrayim was good, was a good thing. The Medrash stresses that. And the Posik Vayesheiv Hurad Mitzrayim, simple translation is he was lowered, he was brought down to Mitzrayim. So the Medrash teaches that the word Hurad has another meaning. In the same word, which means going down to Mitzrayim, Hurad means, it's a Yosham Yed Miyam Adom, which means the concept of controlling. So the Medrash says, what does Yosef Hurad Mitzrayim? Kofshim. He controlled Mitzrayim. His going down was in order to control. And there's a Heimem Dalad Aleph, but the Rebbe doesn't write what the Rashatebis, what the abbreviation is. But I saw in a different Girsei Medrash, it says, K'mei Sha'ato Eimer. So maybe Heimem Dalad Aleph means Hainu Mata Ato Eimer. Ho Mata Ato Eimer. It means anyway what he's saying is that when it says Yosef Hurad Mitzrayim, it means, like it says in Posik, V'yer miyom ad yom. It's a Posik until you control from one yom to the other. Sholet behin. He controlled him. And also, this is what it says in Posik. It's another Posik in Tanakh. He controls, rules over Eber Hanor. So the word Hurat means controls. What does that mean? Kivshun, Kvoshun, or Kovshun, Unreide vet opgelernt von Veloshun Hurat Mitzrayim. Where do we learn that Yosef controlled and ruled over Mitzrayim? From the word Hurat Mitzrayim, which is going down to Mitzrayim in Golus. The Kavana Matorah for Nererode is because the purpose of coming down to Mitzrayim is as Yosef Zoven der Kevish Vishala, Yosef should become the one that's controlling, the one that's ruling. The Mishnah Lebelach Mitzrayim became the second to the king Mitzrayim. And without him, no one could pick up a hand or foot, which means he controlled Mitzrayim. And the Medrash puts it into the Posek Yosef Hurad. So that again shows that Yosef going down to Mitzrayim is not that it's a bad thing. Later from that came out good. It itself was something good. He came down to control Mitzrayim. So in the Posek where it says he was lower to Mitzrayim, the Medrash says it also means he controlled Mitzrayim. So the that fits to the rest and the redemption of Yitas Kislev. The Meiser is not given a besondere Sache und danach ist gekommen die Gula. It's not that the rest was one thing and then came the Gula, which is a good thing. No, but the Gula is given the Tachlis Yonah Shel HaMeiser Gufa. The Gula, the redemption, was the purpose of the Meiser. Now, in other words, the Meiser being in jail brought about what the Gula represents. So already in the Meiser, in the going into jail. How? Say the Rebbe Rashab, ich muss sagen, gesagt, the Rebbe Rashab said, for this thing, he said something that even, and he gave an introduction, even though it's hard to say it, but what should I do? That's the fact. That what? The Gilu was given, kommen noch Peterburg, given al derech Maimer Chazal, hazai ish kesheketznei semis shamnei. That the fact, the Gilu that came out, we know after Peterburg, after the Alter Rebbe came out of jail, the whole evening of Chassidus started becoming much stronger. So he said, this is similar to what the Gemara says, the Chazal say, that just like an olive, purpose of an olive really, the best purpose is to have oil, but you have to squeeze it first. So the squeezing is to get the oil. So just like the Chazal say, an olive, when you squeeze it, that's how you get the oil. So the same thing said the Alter Rebbe. In order to get the oil, the good part, Alter Rebbe, the Gilui of Chassidus, there had to be the jail. Was from the Moshel is moving in Nimshel. From the Moshel, we understand in the Nimshel, what we're bringing out, just like by the olive. There's no such thing, olive, pressing the olive, squeezing it is bad. But then something good comes out. It's not that. The whole squeezing is for the purpose of the oil. Where the Rebbe is saying this Mamshir, the Rebbe Rashab says, through these Ketrugim that were in Peterburg, that came out the pnimius, the inner part. The main kavana is to reveal the pnimius, the inner part, the main thing of Chassidus. And that was the what made it happen is the fact that it was in jail. Okay, as we know, as noch the Kislev, it's a chogim bika the ringen from your futzim and secha chutz slapshus lakus nasoge. After the Kislev means after he went out of jail, that's when started the real union of Yefutzim and Nesecha Chutzu, that the Manyonas, the wellsprings of the Baal Shem Tov should be spread out, because that brought the slapshus of Lakus and Asoga, that godliness could be put into the person's brain. And that happened after the Kislev. And how did that happen? Because he was in jail. That was Lagabe Yidden. The same thing, this had an effect, an influence on the Goyim, because Kislev had an influence. The Sore Amlucha, the officers of the government, the Meiser, the fact that he was in jail, brought Ashmein, this is a lotion of the Alter Rebbe's letter to the Barditchever, and also similar to the Baruch Mezhebusher. He writes that Shmein is Gadol in Skadesh Bein Kol Asorim, Hashem's name came big and holy in the eyes of the officers. V'on of Omra al Zeis, Kim Hashem Hois Zeis. They said on this, that it came from Hashem. Hini Flois Beinenu, this is wonders. And they said it. They gave freedom and they gave permission to spread Chassidus. And that came from the squeezing from the jail. So here we see a similarity between the Parsha and the Kislev. The Kislev is a day that going to jail, which is the bad part, so to speak, really is the good. That's the beginning of the Gilui Chassidus. Vayesheiv also, when he went to Mitzrayim, it was in order for him to become the controller of Mitzrayim. So the going to Mitzrayim, the Hurad Mitzrayim, or going down, the descent, is really, that itself is good. That Hurad is Meloshem, V'yered Mayom, he controlled Mitzrayim. Then the Rebbe says, is noch nicht ganz glad. It's still not smooth. Safe is in Parsha Vayesheiv, the Meduber Begolui, then you read this is Yesel Mitzrayim, Chulu, these are Gefinnus Rabbi Saseir. If you look at the simple Parsha, the way you read the Parsha, it talks about Yosef coming down to Mitzrayim, until he was found, went to jail. Und der Inyan Ateva has Teeles, was gekommen von Herodes Yosef Mitzrayim, bei Teshnes Gale und the Zilt Achaze. But the good that came out from it, from the fact that he went down to Mitzrayim, that is revealed in the Torah later, in the Shpetedike Parsha Torah, in the later Parsha. It's not with the Inyan Agula, was mit the Kislev. So it's not like, with the Kislev, the going to jail is the beginning of what makes Gilui Chassidus. By Yosef, look in the Parsha. Later on, we realize what happened before, but in the Parsha, we're trying to say that the Parsha has the same meaning as Yutas Kislev. In the Parsha, we don't see. In the Parsha, it talks about Yosef going to Mitzrayim, Yosef going to jail, etc., etc. But we have to say it's not like that. Since the Parsha has a connection to Yutas Kislev, Mela, there has to be something in the Parsha, Gula. Not that the Gula is in the Parsha, and later we find out, and another Parsha, we find out that this is really the beginning of the Gula. But in this week's Parsha, it talks about Geula of Yosef. When he came down to us, it's a Geula. How is it? So first, in order to understand it, we have to explain the Medrash. The Medrash we mentioned before. From dem was Razal sagt, na der Inyan from Kofshun, is angedeit in Loshen Yosef wurde Mitzrayim begufen. Since the Chazal tell us, from this that the Chazal tell us, that this idea that Yosef ruled over Mitzrayim is hinted in the Posik, Yosef Hurad Mitzrayim. Hurad means goes down, which is a negative thing. Like I said, as the Medrash says, this is the pshat in Hurad means v'yered, like it says v'yered Yom, he controlled it. His movement from that we understand that Yosef is reading the Mitzrayim, but not like später the first kosher. From that we understand from the Medrash teaching it on the posuk Hurad. Thus the Medrash is telling us that not only later when he went to Mitzrayim, later it brought about that he controlled Mitzrayim. So Zion, for his becoming a Mishnah Lamelech, was demoled as a Repel given the Shil, and that's when he controlled Mitzrayim. But that happened later. But it's telling you, no, it must be found in the Hurad. It's not only that happened later, but that was the purpose why he went to Mitzrayim. It's more than that. Noch mehr. Beide in Yonim stehen demselben Wort, Hurad. Both the going down to Mitzrayim and controlling Mitzrayim are all the same word. Hurad is Yeride. Hurad means descent. When Hurad Meloshem V'Yered, Reide, Shlite. Hurad is also from the words of control, of ruling. B'shas given the Yeride is B'shas Meise given V'Yered, Reide Kivshend. For Medrash we see that at the same time when he had the descent, he went to Golas. Not later he became. The same time he was in control. Now Seems like Zapis. How could he in the same word which speaks about the Yeride Mitzrayim to talk about saying that time he already controlled Mitzrayim. So how do the two things fit? So that's one thing to understand. We also have to understand. There in the same Medrash, there's another interpretation when it says Yosef descended, we came down to Mitzrayim. So it says like this. It means he brought the Shechina with him to Mitzrayim. And the Medrash says, how do we know the Shechina went down with him? Since it says, Vahi Hashem es Yosef, when they came down to Mitzrayim right away, in Potiphar's house, it says Hashem was with Yosef. So the Medrash says, that means he came down, they brought the Shechina down. Since we know that if you have more than one interpretation in one word, few interpretations, they all are connected, darf man sagen, als der Pirush ist verbunden mit dem friedlichen Pirush Hurad Kvoshen. So we have to say this pshat that when he came down to Mitzrayim, he brought the Shechina with him, is connected to what we said before. He came down to Mitzrayim, he controlled Mitzrayim, because that's one pshat we said before. There's another pshat, but they all have to be connected. Now the Rabbi is going to explain the connection. Yes, Leib the bir bezeh. The explanation is like this: in Gulam B'Tiyef and Golan Frant Rayefanu, when a person is in trouble and has to fight, and then he has a Pediya, he's redeemed, and he has a Gula from the Golas. There are three ways it could happen. It's all based on the posik. Eventually, Podo b'Sholom Nafshi. So the Rebbe said, the first way is Pediya b'Derech Muhammad. You have a problem, you have challenges. You fight the challenges. So you could fight the challenges. You fight with your opponent. You overpower him and you win. So that's a Pediya. If you win against your opponent, you win out of goals. The Gula Pediya is not kishlemes dike, but this redemption that you have is not complete. For Medav's nutzen sein upon him enkli sein, you have to use ammunition. You're fighting with him, which is his thing. The opponent's thing, the ammunition. You got to use the same ammunition, similar to him, but you got to connect to him. Tachsisa Muhammad, you got to follow the rules of war, how you win a war. Says Damla Rabbi Shfachta. David told you, even though he won the wars and he's a great tzaddik, but you can't build a Beis Hamikdash because you spilled blood. In other words, to win the war, you got to spill blood, which is a negative thing. Says it's about krov. A war is called krov. It's another word for war. Why is it called krov? You get close to each other, which means you become closer to his level. So even though you win over him, but you're affected by his level, you have to fight his way. You have to fight with war, and you get close to him. Close to him means you're close to his level. Lashon Achsidus, Chassidus says the Lashon. You want to be mevarer nitzutis akdusha, which are found in gashmisdike things, you have to lower yourself, put yourself in the lavush, in the garment of the thing you are elevating, and you fight with it. So if you do that, it has to pay layiridin too. You're lowering yourself to that madrege. Like the posik says in the Geit Eibush, they will find that in Esov, kol malbusha yagolti. All my garments are dirty. Because if you fight with somebody that's dirty, you get dirty yourself. Therefore, even after you win the war and you have the gula, he says, it's not completely. You won over the war, you made a nitzochen, but your clothes are still dirty because you fought with them. So it's not a complete redemption. A higher level is when you redeem, which means you win in peace, meaning the from Gula, the Farbe sein starker is Adkedekach. You are so strong, and you have a Gula so much so strong as Niv Allah Lufedim. Tipelei Mosbafachat. Edem, or it says when the other nations they get scared, which means they're not going to fight you. But what's the pshat? Mishteit hecher from the menaged legamra. You're beyond. You won it. You won over him, and he, not that you're fighting with him and you connect yourself to him and you win him. This the second level. Is you're beyond. Pshita as nichaychas ken kirov. You're not close to him. You're not fighting a war because they get scared. That's a higher level of going out of the problem that you have, of the challenges you have. The Gemara about Aved is in Aved. Aved is Hashem. We find something similar. Learning Torah. When other things that you're provided, you have to get involved in certain things. Take on a simple thing. When you eat, you're provided in the tzutzis of the food. So you got to eat. You got to get involved in the food. Get involved. But when you learn Torah, you're beyond anything. You're higher. It says my words, which is like fire. Torah can become tummy, which means you're higher than tumah. The first way is you're involved in fighting tumah, and you win the tumah, but you're still involved and you were fighting, and afterwards still sticks to you a little bit. This one is you're higher. Tumah is separated, and tumah is afraid of you, so to speak. They didn't challenge you. They got scared. But in their place, they're still there. They're still strong. Could be now they're quiet, but they're still strong in their wherever they are in their place. Who knows? Later they might become stronger. They never use the lotion. The Gemara says, Posik says, but the Gemara teaches when they gave their descendants that they will fight each other, and one will win and the other one will lose, and then the other one will win, this one will lose. The Gemara says, when one, let's say, Esav gets up, Yaakov, the Eden are down. When the Eden are up, Esav is down. Why? Even though they got scared at one point, but later they could wake up. So even though that you won, and it's called winning b'sholem. B'sholem means you didn't have to fight. They just retreated, and that's it. But you never know. So therefore, even if the person is really in a gula, he says, was by him is not for the menaged of golas. He is in a level that the menaged, the opponent, has no place. He's out of your picture. That means there's no place for golas. When you go out of golas in this second level, it means no more golas. First level, you're still connected to God. The golas is still shaykh. Here, there's no golas. Aber in dem Ort von golas hat sich nicht aufgetan a gula. But there is a place called golas, and the golas didn't change. The golas didn't become a gula. It's just you are away from that golas. So as far as you're concerned, it's the shleimus, but the b'sholem, not like the first level, but still there is. The hechster even is the highest way, is the third way. As alpha PSA Farana Yerida Lamokim Nikasam Medina Samanagit. These are shlapshus and golas. The highest level of winning is like this. You go down to the place of golas, and you're in the country of the menagid of the one that's opposing you, and you're mislapish in golas. You're in golas. You're in there. Afopke is a neat nor in aifma. The golas peilt is this neat nor. Neat in aifma. The golas peilt. I golti. I yerid amitis. So it's not only that at this point, the third level, that you're not getting dirty. The first level is you get dirty. Secondly, you don't get dirty. So the third level is not only you don't get dirty, nor rather the contrary. The golas gufa vet is hapach l'matzav shegula. There is no more golas. The golas is transformed into gula. That's called the real gula. It's the third level. What's lost in the tibrik and the sinasmokim with menagad the golas, it doesn't leave over a place for an opponent to fight you and for golas. It's over. So the second way, there is golas, but not by me. I'm beyond it. But there is a golas. And the third way, there is no more golas because transformed the golas. Those are the Pirush and Posik Poda b'sholem nafshi. Posik says, David HaMelech said, you redeemed my nefesh b'sholem. And the Posik continues, mikrovli. What does it mean, mikrovli? Mikrovli from the fighting. Krov, he said before, is a war. But so normally we teach Poda b'sholem nafshi mikrovli. You redeemed me, my nefesh, from the war. I was redeemed. The Rebbe teaches different. Poda b'sholem nafshi. You redeemed me completely. Mikrovli means as choshesh is a matzah for mikrovli, and even though there is a war, For Muhammad was kum bei from the Slapshus and Gola. There is a war, there is a Golas, and there is a fighting of the war. For deswegen is the B'diya in Anekim for Sholem, and nevertheless you have Sholem. It's a contradiction. If you're still in this matzav of Golas, so you're not B'diya yet, you're not redeemed yet. So he says, no. This level of redemption comes from the Madrege, but nicht the ganze Gette from Golas comes from Madrege, that there is no Golas. Und der Rebbe wird tut sie auf, as the Golas Gufe wird ein Gula. That's why it accomplishes that the Golas is transformed into Gula. Because you reach such a high Madrege that there is no Golas. So the second level, there is a Golas, not by you. Here, you're connected to the Golas, and the Golas is transformed into Gula. And there automatically there is no more Golas. And in Order 43, the Rebbe says that in Yerushalmi it says, in the Pshat Poda B'Sholem, Ki Berabim Hoyi Imodi, but Pshat, you redeemed my nefesh B'Sholem, because many were with me. What do you mean many were with me? She'anshe Avsholem hay mispalalim nitzchini shel David. That David said, the people of Avsholem who fought me were really davening I should win. That's the Nakuda here. That even the opponents are really making Sholem, are really with you. That means they are opponents and they're still with you. That means you're transforming the opponents. And he says in Order 44, that's the pshat that Geula is the same letters as Geila. Geila means Golas. Geula is redemption. So it's Geila, but Tosfos Aleph with an extra Aleph. Put an Aleph in. That means not you're having another word. You have the word Geila, Golas. But that Golas is Geula. By adding an Aleph, becomes Geula. These three Ifanim of how you overcome the opponents, overcome the challenges, etc., fit to the three levels, types of Avedas Hashem that the Shvotim did, that the Oves did, and that Yosef did. And then he explains it. The Shvotim, the Shvotim were shepherds. What did the shepherds do? They were separated from the world. They were isolated. Moved off in Welt. They were in the field, separate, isolated from the world. Why did the opposites do that? So they shouldn't have anything of the world which would bother them from their serving Hashem. So that's why they stayed away from the world. That's what the Shvatim's way of their Aveda was. The Pnimis Inyonim, if you looked at more in Chassidus, in Kabbalistic terms, Madregas HaShvatim, the Madrega of the Shvatim, al Pikabola, is Merkavta Tato. We know there's a Merkava. It says the Ovis with the Merkava. So Chassidus, Tantanya, teaches what that means, but Poshepshah, there is the Merkava, the chariot of Hashem, and the Ovis represent the chariot. Then there's a second Merkava, a lower level. That's the Shvatim. That's called Merkavta Tato. So when you're at a lower level, Hotvelt Atvisas Mokim. If you're a lower level, the higher level, there is no Velt. That's what, but by them, there was a Velt that bothered them. The Leib, as they wollten jedet gewend, had they lowered themselves and got involved in worldly matters, wollten sie nicht gekannt bleiben bei seiner Madrege von Dweikes Belakus Beifen von Merkava. They could have not remained in the same holy high level of connection to Hashem like a Merkava. Like I mentioned before, and Tanya says a Merkava means just like a chariot doesn't have its own will. It rides, it goes places, but it only does what the will of the rider. So to the Ovis, and in this case, the Shvatim, the lower level, was like a Merkava. They were bottled to Hashem. Not at the same high level as the Ovis, but they were bottled to Hashem. Had they gone out into the world, it would have disturbed them from being bottled to Hashem. That's why they had to be shepherds. So they're in a level where they are a Merkava, but there is a problem, there is an opponent, there is a Velt, which is the opponent of Kedusha. There is a Velt, and they have to get away from it. The darkest Ovis, the Ovis are Merkavta Yilo, the higher Merkava, he says, I feel as I finde dich in Welt, saying they need to be slapshes Veilim. That even if they're in the world, they're not involved, put into the world, und der Fall sein, die Honor Elam nicht involved with Kusam Hashem. That's why, even though they have the worldly matters, it didn't disturb them. The Shvatim, worldly things disturbed them, so they had to be shepherds. The Ovis, worldly things didn't disturb them. That means because it didn't affect them. In other words, there was a world, but in their world, they still stayed the way tzaddikim they are, and they didn't have to go out and separate themselves, isolate themselves from the world. Hecher davon is darkes Aveda from Yosef. The higher level is Yosef. What? That's mitzad echad is given mislapsh b'nyonim. Yosef was involved in the world. See, the others were not involved in the yonim of the world, but they didn't have to separate from the world, but they were not involved. So Mela, they were beyond the world, so to speak. Yosef was mislabish. He was put into the yonah of the world. From Zaydik and Mitzrayim, being given a tirtek deil of Atzumah b'Yosef. While he was Mitzrayim, he was so what Mitzrayim the bother of Mitzrayim was so much. It's a lotion of the Mittel Rebbe and Teras Chaim. So that when he was king of Mitzrayim, he was so involved in the yonah of Mitzrayim at Welt. This was when he was Mitzrayim, even before he became king. Certainly when he became king, that he was told by Paray that everything will happen through you. The only thing that's beyond on top of you is my chair. I'm the king, and without you, no one should do anything. So that's certainly, first, before that, he was a lot of things on his head, worldly things. When he became king of Ade, certainly when he gave the food to everybody, he was involved with the whole world. So he was so involved in the world. So that's when that point. That was from beginning when he came to Mitzrayim. When he was a slave to Potiphar, he was involved, busy with the business of Potiphar. Afterwards, when he was in jail, a prisoner, it says in Posek that the officer of the jail, put everything of all the prisoners in the hands of Yosef, and whatever they did, in other words, everything went under him. So he was very much involved in the Welt. He was involved in the Welt. See, not the Shvatim were isolated in the Welt. The others were not isolated, but were mislabish, they didn't get involved in worldly matters. Yosef was involved in the world. All this bother did not disturb him from his Dveikas connection to Hashem. And while he was involved in these things, he was a Merkabah, he was bottled to Hashem. Why? By him, he was such a level that godliness, the light of Hashem, the light of godliness was such a high light, which is higher in the world. You have a light of Hashem, which could overcome the problems of the world. But the world is a metzias in that level too. But the light brings light and overcomes it. Then there's a higher light that there is no Welt. In that level, the world doesn't exist. But in this level, you can't even say that the world is nothing. If you say, compared to this light, the world doesn't exist, means that the world is something. And you have to not be that light is not connected to the world. If you say that, it means it has a certain connection that you have to say it's not. This is such a highlight that the world is not there at all. Since world in itself is not Tefes Mokim, doesn't mean, so you could be involved in Welt. And still, it will not disturb the connection to Hashem. Because in the Weltikische things that you're involved, you see a Lakus. In the world, you hear godliness, you feel godliness, which is beyond the world. Because it's a godliness that the world is not Tefes Mokum. So when you have a Welt, it's only godliness. You find this by Yosef. We can see it by Yosef. When he was a slave by Potiphar, is Vayar Adeinav ki Hashem itu chalash eis Hashem atzlich b'yodei. His master saw that Hashem is with him, and whatever he did, Hashem gives him success. Which means, in dem ort, for Potiphar is Adeinav, he says his master saw. We're talking about Adeinav is his master. So it's a point where Yosef is under the control of Potiphar. Dort in Gufe hat selber Adeinav gesehen ki Hashem echt itei. The same master, which represents Welt, saw that Hashem is with him. That was when he was never by Potiphar. Also later, Zaindik and Osir Beis HaSeir, when he was a prisoner in jail, is Vahi Hashem es Yosef, Vayetel of Chased, Vayitir Chignei, Ben Yisar Beis HaSeir. that Yosef, Hashem was with Yosef, and the officer there, the one in control of the jail, did chesed to him, turned chesed to him, and he found grace in the eyes of the Sar Beis Haseir. Was hat sich angehört, beim Sar Beis Haseir, wo Yosef began anosia. Yosef was in jail. Jail means that the world is Tefes Moki, but the world is controlling, so to speak. He's in jail. In jail, the head of the jail saw that there's David there. So here we see a madrege of Yosef, that he was in Welt, and at the same time, the Welt was not Tefes Moki. This will explain, was der Medrash sagt, that Yosef hurat mit seinem Kopfschon, jered miyam ad yom. But the Medrash says, on the opposite, Yosef hurat Mitzrayim, Yosef lowered him, had the descent to Mitzrayim. The Medrash teaches that same word hurat means he controlled Mitzrayim. Like it says, the word jered miyam ad yom, which means control. How? And we'll understand now, the Sheiches von dem Minion zum Pirush von hurat heiret es Ashkinim, and also based on what we're going to say, we'll understand the connection to the other pshat. That what is it? The Medrash says Yosef hurat Mitzrayim, but he brought the Shechina down with him. It's all connected. Why? The mitzvah Yosef hurat Mitzrayim kipshute, uneich beruchnius, through Yosef coming down in Mitzrayim, poshet, okay, physically Mitzrayim. Also beruchnius, like Miss Gewend the Yeride in Islapshes in Mitzrayim. He was put into Mitzrayim, beruchnius. He was in the world, and the world which is all kinds of negative things. While he's there, he brought a lakus, he brought a shchin. That's what it says. That Yeride is the control of Mitzrayim. Because when he came down in a level, Mitzrayim is there, and nevertheless, you're connected to Hashem. Because when Yosef comes to Mitzrayim, das Gufa macht ihn Mitzrayim. That itself changed Mitzrayim. Transforms it. So much so that in Mitzrayim, in the place of Mitzrayim, which is the opposite of Kedusha, you feel a lakus. That didn't happen only later on, as soon as he came down. Okay, now, like we said before, the posting of Vayar Adeinov, Hashem Itei. His master, when did that happen? His master, he went to Tiferai away, and he said Hashem is with him. And therefore he appointed him on everything of his house, and all his things he gave over to the hand of Yosef. The same thing was in jail. So he went to jail, which is the Yerida, but the Yerida itself is a Yerida, but it comes along with a great thing. It's a Yerida where it could be, Yerida means you see the challenges, you see the klipa, so to speak, and that itself is Kedusha. Teire Shebal Peh is Megalas, Vayesheiv Hurad Mitzrayim, is Pirusha Vinyone, Kofshun, Hainumad Yed Miyam. The Medrash Teire Shebal Peh tells us that when Yosef came down to Mitzrayim, what does it mean? It means he controlled Mitzrayim. So the coming down, which is the Yerida, the Golus, is really the great thing that happened, that he controlled Mitzrayim. So now that we know how by the union of this parsha, when it talks about Yosef going down to Mitzrayim, the going down really already is the good part. So you have the Geula in the Golus. The same thing with the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe given the Beisasurim Beislapshus in Golus. The Alter Rebbe was in Golus. He was in jail. Not mamti given the Dinim Bavoras Hayad Elemetzach Vel Aponim Bemes. He said that he could have sweetened the judgment, that he could have done to get out of it by just putting his hand on his forehead and on the face, I guess, and thinking something, and be over. That's not what he did. He was in Golus, in jail. There's another expression where it says that he could have made Be'emes, the tiny Savet, which is the name of the jail, could have just burned down. He could have done it. If he'd want, he would do it. But he didn't do that. He was in Golus. He was actually in jail. And the way they dealt with him is, and you say this from Torah mitzvahs, that they questioned him, and they were cheke v'derish, many questions in the foundation of Torah mitzvahs. And he answered with a great explanation. So in such a way that the thick brains of those that did this interrogation, they also understood. That means he came to jail, and in jail he was masber elokus legoyim. While he was their prisoner, they understood in Yonim and Torah. Aber the Ider Gise, der Alter Rebbe nicht gewinnt muchrig of them. The truth is, the Alter Rebbe didn't have to be that way. Super the Friedrich Rebbe said, "At the ganze Inyan Atfise given beheskem Rabbeinu Agodel." The whole idea that was in jail was because he agreed to it. But the Rebbe was nicht Masken given, wollte man ihm nicht Tefes given. If the Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe, would have not agreed to go to jail, they never would have took him. They able to take him. The Raya, like that means from the Nasi Lepeter, but the proof is that it's all because he agreed, is from when he traveled, when they took him to jail, is Freitag geblieben stehen, die schwarze Beidel, hat ihm geholfen, die 4 Pferd, was mir gespannt, schleppen den Wagen. The Alter Rebbe wanted him on the way, when they took him, was Friday, by Chtzos, he wanted him to stop. They didn't want. No matter what they did, they got horses, they got this, everything, it didn't go. Why didn't they go? Alter Rebbe had me gewollt, he didn't want. The Melee, just like that he didn't want, could be if he wouldn't want, it should be jail, he would have not gone. Der Klolle Sinja von der Tfise, dass wir Al-Boshe berotzen, what he didn't have to go. If he wanted, it wouldn't happen. But he wanted. And what does that mean? Now, it means that the Rotzen, he didn't want to use L'mayla Maderech. He could have done L'mayla Maderech. It should burn down or whatever. Just that they should get out of there, whatever. He didn't want that. So he agreed to stay there. Now, what does it mean he agreed to stay there? Says Yedua, we know what it says in Chassidus, as a halboshe, when Hagbole berotz is nit kenemes Hagbole. That if you have a Hagbole, a limitation to something, you limit it. Jail is a limitation. It's Hagbole. Halboshe means you're dressed into something and now you're limited to where you are. If you do it, if that limitation is because you decided, you agreed, it's not a real limitation. When is it called you're really limited if something from the outside of you forces you to this Hagbola? If you're Magbil yourself, you limit yourself. So you are, the limitation itself is you. If you want that Hagbola, Hagbola means you're limited. You can't go out of your wherever you are. But if you put yourself, let's say if someone puts himself in jail, he's not really in jail. Jail means you're limited. You can't get out. But I put myself in, so it's not against my will. It's me. The limitation means that I'm not there. I'm here in this Hagbola. So by the Alter Rebbe, there were these two things. On one hand, he wanted to go to jail. He didn't want him, but he agreed to it. It was berotzen. On the other hand, he's not in jail. It's not a real Hagbola. The Rebbe here, the Orah 65 brings a halacha, an example in halacha. If a person wants to cover his head for making a broch or something, and if you put your hands, not on your arm, but your hands on your head, that doesn't cover, because you're covering yourself with yourself. Cover means you're limiting. Now you're cutting it out. But the mela from here on, it's not you. But why is it from here on not you? Because you yourself are there. So that doesn't work. So here we have by the Alter Rebbe these two things. He went in berotzen, but really he went in to be maskim, to be in jail. And at the same time, he wasn't in jail, which means in the time was by jemand die can sein that tzvek service. How could it be these two extremes? His movement diver Rabbi saying and saying we understand from what the Rabbi said. But the Alter Rebbe is a natzmi. By atzmi is in chachas kashinas manemokim. The Alter Rebbe was a atzmi. Atzmi by him is the essence. All these different things of spheres, this can be together with this. It's all Giluyim. Giluyim means outward things, and they have their limitations. The Alter Rebbe was an atzmi. It needs a lot of explanation what that means, but that's what the Rabbi said. An atzmi is beyond time and space. And the Rebbe, therefore, even though he was in jail, he was melubish, he was in jail. He influenced the officers, that they should let him go free. Recognizing that he's a godly person. So here we see these two things. He said he went in and he was in jail, and he was b'derech hatev in jail, and he was in jail, and in jail they recognized Hashem. So the jail was a limitation, which was not really a limitation. Or like he says, he went in the jail berotzen, so he wanted to be. At the same time, he wasn't in jail, because if it was a rotzen, it wasn't in jail. This means that here, that's the third madrege that you have. You're in the golus, but you're not in the golus. That's the highest level of gula. Because even the second level is the pshat that the golus is away from you. It could come back. But if you change, transform in the Golus, there is the Gula, then it changed. Und das ist, der Alter Rebbe is Meirich bi Gerossi Hayidu wegen sein Gula. This is what Alter Rebbe writes at length in a letter about his Gula. Hifle Hashem, Hikti Lasses Boretz, Hashem made wonders in the world. Hashem is Gadol in Skadish Barabim, Befrad Bein Asar V'chol Amim, that this Hashem's name became big and holy, especially in the eyes of the officers and all the nations. Hashem B'chol Amdinas Hamelech, with all the countries of the king. Hashem Gam B'neim Yipol Adover Hafel V'felo. Even in their eyes, it was a wondrous thing. They said that it came from Hashem only, and it's a wonder. That means being under their control. So all the officers, including the king. There is a big chacham and a godly person, like it says in Beis Rebbe. Und das, als sehe, man erkennt, dass Hashem ist, drückt der Alter Rebbe, this fact that they recognized expresses the specialty of Yudas Kislev. Why? Because we're trying to say now that Yudas Kislev is the third way, which means you're in Golas, and the Golas itself recognizes Elokus. That you see in this part. Because Bamis, you can ask Akasha, what's Nagay to say that the Goyim recognize? So he says, no, this shows that this is an important part. Because the fact that the Goyim represent the Golas. He was in jail by them, and they recognize the greatness of Hashem. That means this third madrege. Bedugma v'si given by Yosef, der Hurat Gufi given by Yered Kivshon. Like by Yosef, the fact that he went down, that was already the control over Mitzrayim. Then the Rebbe says, everything that we have comes out and is revealed through Torah, because Torah is a light. So it lights up everything. So if anything that you have any svara, you have to find something in Torah that fits and explains it. But that is aber nicht getan. Same thing in our case. The roof from the Meise Begula von Alter Rebbe is verbunden mit dem Chilish von Alter Rebbe mit Terose. This is that we just explained, the specialty of the jail and the redemption of the Alter Rebbe, as we said before, that shows that the jail itself, the enemy is, which is the Golas, is the Gula. We see that in something a Chilish the Alter Rebbe writes in his Torah. And Frag Besifra Tanya, especially in Tanya, was do is the Gula of Interskis given in Schus von the Zwei Chayz Betera Aveda, the Tanya at Meisik and Zwischen Chassidim. We know, and this is written in Tanach Tzedek, that the reason he went out of jail, he had a schus to go out. Why? Because there were 2 years from when the Tanya came out till he was in jail. There were 2 years where the Tanya added chayis, life, enthusiasm, and Torah and Aveda among Chassidim. The Father the Alter Rebbe gewollt that the Tanya was a Schapiro and Yudas Kislev. The Alter Rebbe wanted the Tanya should be printed before Yudas Kislev, but it wasn't. It came wanted before, because the schus of the Tanya that was there made the Alter Rebbe go out of jail. If you look in Tanya, which is the Torah of the Alter Rebbe, you'll see over there expressed this Nekuda that we said before concerning Yudas Kislev. Rabbi, explanation is like this. The Sefer Tanya Kadisha, the way the Tanya is set up now by us, Kum de Shara Yichov the Mun al Zweiter Chelik. Shara Yichov the Mun, where it talks about the unity of Hashem, is the second part of Tanya. So Rabbi Yedu of him that Zel Bachsidim about Alter Rebbe and Akasal Kedaitach Zumas Sada Zay Shara Yichov the Mun al Desh Chelik. But Alter Rebbe the Chassidim tell had a thought of having Shara Yichov Mun being the first part. As my time gefindt in the Chinuch Kotten that Dom to Shara Yichov the Mun Beis Gimel Pom and Loshen Kamishi is Boyer Loshen Osid, and that's the reason why. There is a Hagdome introduction he writes to Shari Chadamana, which is called Chinuch Kotten. And there he refers to the first Perek of Tanya. But he refers to it as it will be explained in the future. Even though he meant referring to the things which are explained in the first part, because he planned that the first part should be the second, and the first part of Tanya should be Shari Chadamana. Noch mer, go more. Since the Alter Rebbe left, Hilchatchila wrote as it will be explained, and he didn't change that. He left those words, didn't change it in his boyer. He does Bavais that shows as Afilo Nodem and the Alter Rebbe Machal Gwen the Shari Yichud the Munus Lokuma Nodem Chedek Rishon, shows that even after the Alter Rebbe decided that Shari Yichud the Munus should be the second Chedek, should come after the first, but the Ibigel was on the Sinus Mokum Seferos Akademis. He nevertheless left over a place for his first thought. Und der Shara Yichud v'Amunah hat an was steht früher, aber nicht bei Revenionim. And therefore we must say that in Shara Yichud v'Amunah there are things which come, so to speak, before the first Perek of Tanya. That's the beginning. Not in everything, but there must be some things there. That's why the Alter Rebbe left, even though he decided to make in the second, but since he left the words as it will be explained, which means the first, that to a certain degree there is Shari Yichum is the first. The Seder for Avodah Sodom is, so now he explains it based on that. The Seder of Avodah Sodom is as Badei Tzukum and Sa'ava V'yira, with us the Teichem V'chel Kedushin Shabbatani. The way a Yid serves Hashem, in order to get to love Hashem and have fear of Hashem, which this is the whole point of the first part of Tanya. So first has to come Shari Yichud Emunah. What Shari Yichud Emunah? Loshen is the pure Emunah and the Emunah in the unity of Hashem, which is the Teichem for Shari Yichud Emunah. That's the contents of Shari Yichud Emunah. Like it says in the Haggadah, Chinuch Kotten Be'ed. Vayesheiv as in a Meiser Ragula von Alter Rebbe sagt sich heraus Betanya B'terosse von Alter Rebbe Biken Shari Yichud Emunah. So now comes out there is to a certain degree Shari Yichud Emunah is the first of the Alter Rebbe's Torah. It's even in Tanya the first to a certain degree. So b'meile we probably will find in Shari Yichud Emunah a connection to what we said before, because everything that we explained about the Alter Rebbe to Kislev has to be found in the Torah. It's found in Shari Yichud Emunah. How? This is what the Rebbe explains. Shvischen the Ikra Yonah with the Alter Rebbe is Mavayir Machat and Shari Yichud Emunah. Amongst the main things that the Alter Rebbe explains and is Machadish Shari Yichud Emunah, there are mainly two general points. Number one, the beer in Pirish Hashem Tev Hashem Hashem. One of the things he says there brings the pshat of Hashem Tev on the posuk where it says, "Forever Hashem, your words are standing in the Shemayim," and he brings what the Hashem Tev says. What does that mean? Your words are standing in Shemayim. Those words, when you created the Shemayim, you said Yihirakia amongst the 10 statements. He said, "Let there be a Rakia, let there be a Shemayim." So Tevis ve'eses eila and itzovis ve'emdes leila b'teich Rakia Shemayim lach yesod. These words are always inside the Shemayim. They give the Shemayim its life and its existence. Ilo hayeses mistalkes kerega chas v'sholem v'chezel zimkeram. Had these words of Hashem that he said Yirakia, which is in the Shemayim and gives it existence, had them left and gone back to its source, so he called Hashemayim ayin v'efes mamish v'yikle hoyiklal. There would be no more Shemayim. It would be like it never was. Mamish like before the world was created. But the fun of Ashtandig, now, if that is the truth, that the words of Hashem are in the Shemayim, which means not only by the Shemayim, it's in every Maimer, everything in the world is created, the words of Hashem that created it are mislabish in it. For them, that we understand. So if that's true, then any creation, any yesh, anything that's something, truth, it's like nothing. Which is nothing compared to that kayach of the Eibishter, which comes from the speech of Hashem, from the air of Hashem while he's speaking, that makes it, that creates it, and makes it ma'in liyesh. So it comes out, since it's in there, the whole mitzias of everything is only the words of Hashem. That's one thing it says in Shari Yichud Emunah. Second thing, we know that in order to create the world, Eibishter had to put aside his Eir and Sof. This is a deep in Chassidus, but we're not going to explain it. There's a tzimtzum. First there was only Gili Eir and Sof, but Eibishter, it says the Loshen is there was Lehoyamokim Lamidas Ha'ilamas, there was no place for the worlds, so Eibishter made a tzimtzum, pushed away everything. And some say, yeah, Eibishter pushed away, and there's no more Elokus in this space. Alter Rebbe says, no, it's not kipshute, it's not simple. Shakadosh Baruch Hu removed himself chas v'sholem from this world. No, he takes care of everything that comes from heaven to earth, to up and down. Everything. There was a tzimtzum. Doesn't mean kipshute that he's not there. He's there and takes care. You could say the beer inyan and tzimtzum kipshute, that to explain this inyan, the tzimtzum, the concealment of Hashem, contraction of Ein Sof, is not pushed the way it seems. Is nicht abazun der inyan raskum behemshech mashayach zum beer in chidesh ab Hashem kelakamen. Seems like they're two separate inyan. The one thing Alter Rebbe explains the word of the Baal Shem Tov, that the words of Hashem are always in Shemayim. Then he says another thing. He says that's a second. That tzimtzum is not kipshute. So you think that there's two separate things. So the Rebbe says no, they're connected, And the second thing that Tzimtzum and not Kipshute fits to what Baal Shem Tov said, that the Chayas of Debish, the delight of Debish, the Dibur of Debish is in every Nivra. How? The Chidush and Pirish of Baal Shem Tov is not nur as a Dvar Avaya Mushtanim Have Zan Jeden Nivra, Chol Rege Berege. But the Baal Shem Tov said, it's not only that the words of Hashem constantly have to recreate every creature, every second. It says more than that. Nor eich as the tevis yehira kia game as eine meluboshes betech kol erikim leil lachyesim. Doesn't just say that they're there and they create the world. They're inside everything. Now derech ze nal nivroim. It's not only in the Shemayim. Every creature, the tevis ve'esesh evasora mamoris v'zayne ze mahava machaya. Those words and those letters from the 10 statements that they used to create the world, zayne melubish betechom. They are melubish, dressed, put into. As he explains at length, in every creature there is a spiritual life, spiritual chayas. And he says everything. Even those things that are not mentioned, Moshe gives an example. Everything comes from Asara Mamoras that he created the world. What about a stone? Where do we say in Asara Mamoras that they created a stone? Where's the word Evan there? So he says, nevertheless, everything comes from Asara Mamoras. Even if they're not mentioned in the Asara Mamoras, it's still, there are words, each thing has its word in Torah, which comes as a result of the words, because some words exchange an aleph for a hey and a ches and a ad bash aleph tov, all kinds of ways and all kinds of gematrias, numerical values. If you use all these things, everything is there in the Asara Mamoros. That everything of the Asara Mamoros is misamtzim, is made to be put into every specific nivra, and that's the chiddush of the Baal Shem Tov. Not only the Rebbe will explain that it makes it, it creates it. It's inside. The says means like this. It's not the pshat just that the words of Hashem constantly creates the creature, the creation, and the nivra wird nifrit from the Dvar Hashem. But the nivra is separate. You could have, a person could make something. The Eibishter could give chayas to the nivra. The nivra is a separate entity, but who gives it chayas? The Eibishter. No, that's not what he says. No, the Dvar Havai is melubish in them nivra gufa. The words of Hashem are melubish in the nivra, in them ort from the nivra, the place where the nivra is. These are the chayas v'nefesh from yed nivra proti is the Dvar Havaya was in melubish. The chayas of it, what it lives, exists, is because of the Dvar Havaya that's in it. The made us verstandi, we call nivra v'yeshu bemes nichshav l'ayim v'yes mamish. Now we understand what the Alter Rebbe meant when he said every creature, every yesh, every entity is really considered nothing, mamish nothing. Compared to the keach that makes it exist, that creates it, and makes it exist. Because if it would be just that it makes it happen, you wouldn't say that everything is ayin v'efes. It's nothing. It's something, but it gets chayas from the words of Hashem. But if the whole metzias of everything is the words of Hashem that's there, so then everything else is nothing. So it comes out that the bittul from the manipur is not bittul b'shleimusay. So it comes out that so you would think that because the chayes halaki is mislabish in every nivra, which shows how great it is, nevertheless there's some negative thing here. It would seem that it's bittul, the nivra's bittul to the chayes is not complete. Why? Since the chayes is limited to the thing where it comes in, so it's limited. Late nivra canal, according to the creature, is the chayes is limited to what that creature is. So the chayes is limited. So the chayes gives a place for the yesh. You see, it's limited according to the yesh. The Mele say they're bittul, but chayes need can bittul v'shlemusas. Therefore, the bittul that the yesh has, because the chayes is there, not a real bittul, because he looks at himself. Ki'ilu looks at himself. You're in me, and you're in me according to the way I am. So you're limited to my mitzias. That's how you are. So you're limited to my mitzias. That means I'm also mitzias. They told me that Alter Rebbe is mamshich mavayra tzimtzum ain't kipshutach chas v'sholem. But when the Alter Rebbe comes to that tzimtzum is not simple way it seems. That even in that place where we said the Eir V'Chayes is mislavish, the light of Hashem, the Chayes of Hashem, is inside the Nivra, which means he's mitzumtzim. That's what it said before. The tzimtzum is not kipshut, less asar ponaminei. There's no place empty with him. That means he's mitzumtzim in it, but he's not really mitzumtzim. And the Eibishter, the etzem of the Eibishter is there in time and space. Time and space is a limit. If he says in time and space, it means he's limited. We're saying no. His unlimited being is in time and space. It's in time and space means it's limited. It's mitzumtzim, no tzimtzim, not kipshuti. So now here we have two extremes. What are the two extremes? Jeder Nibber has ein Nefesh v'chayis ruch and sprotiv, das kommt durch Tzimtzum nislapshes und das Varavan jeder Nibber. True. Every creature, every part of the creation has its own Nefesh, its own life. Ruch is the life that's specifically geared for this. And it comes into everything according to through a Tzimtzum. It's limited, it's contracted according to each thing. It's mislabish. That Varavai is mislabish in every Nibber according to everything. So that's a tzimtzum. Every little creature is connected to the essence of the Eibishter. While in dem Ort von dem Nivre gefindt sich that in every place there's no tzimtzum. There is, but it's not kipshuti, not the way it seems. So Atzmas is there. So on one hand, there's a big tzimtzum there by saying that everything is mislabish in it, and at the same time, we say the etzem of the Eibishter is there. Now, since we say the essence of the Eibishter, which is the first symptom, is mitzamtzum on the essence, is not a real symptom. So B'meila, and the Eibishter himself is not in the category of Welt. Welt is nothing for him. That the Metzias from Welt Guf is a lakus. So B'meila, this means that in Welt itself, you recognize it's a lakus. On one hand, there is Doa Welt, was nicht in Welt. Loshna Yedua, the Yesha Nivra is Yesha Amiti. There's a Loshen that says in different places, so the Loshen is that the Yesha Nivra, the creature, which is a Yesh, really what is it? The Yesha Amiti. What's the Yesha Amiti? The Eibishter. The Eibishter is the Yesha Amiti, the Atzmas of the Eibishter. So here we have the Yesha Amiti, the Yesha Nivra is one with the Yesha Amiti. There's nothing but him. So whatever else there is nothing but him. So Mele, this explains what we said before. What is Yitus Kislev? The pshat is that not the pshat, you may not say the klippe, or pshat is you're higher than the klippe. The klippe itself is transformed. It means you have two opposites at the same time. You have Hagbola, your opponent, and the opponent is part of you. Same thing, and we see that in Tanya. That the lakus is mislabish in the nivra, and it's mislabish bepnimius, b'meila it's mitzumtzum, and at the same time, that symptom is not really a symptom. So that the symptom itself is not a symptom. Everything in Torah is a lesson for everyone in his Aveda. Especially when it comes to things which are famous, happen to a Nasi, happen to a Neshama Klolis. The Nossi Rebbe is a general neshama that includes all the neshamas. But Muchad, as the Klolos Inyan HaMaisa is given verbunden with Mesiras Nefesh of Teres Achsidus for Kol Yisrael. He wants to show why every Yid has to take a lesson. Maybe not every Yid. Maybe something has to do with Alter Rebbe. So he says, no, since he was a Nossi, he was neshama Klolos. So it's negate everybody. What was his whole thing that he did? Mesiras Nefesh for Teres Achsidus. For who was he Mesiras Nefesh? For all the Yidden. Kol Echad Echem Yisrael, every Yid. But the Alter Rebbe doing it, he opened the tziner, which means the pipe for Mesiras Nefesh, that the Yid could go on Mesiras Nefesh for Chassidus. And he explains what he means. The Aveda von jedem Yid befinden sich in dem Chesh HaGolos. The Aveda of every Yid, finding yourself in the darkness of Golos, darf sein zu beleichten im Chesh HaGolos, to sein Aveda b'nei mitzvah Torah. Your job is to light up the darkness of the Golos with light. Which light? The Aveda is to bring light, neir mitzvah is like a candle, and Torah is like light. Especially in the time before Mashiach. But because in order to light up such a double darkness, which is close to Mashiach, you have to come to a higher light. You have to have to the luminary of Torah, which is Pnimis HaTorah, which was revealed in Torah Achsidus. So that's the kelo that you use to light up the golos. Mitzadem Greisen Cheshich in Welt können aufkommen als solche Schwierigkeiten in Avede. Because of such a great darkness in the world, you could have so many hardships, so many tests in your Avodas Hashem. When they eat their field as nicht nur seine Eden bechlal der Atmo Kalami. When you eat fields, not only are Eden the minority of all the nations, but more than that, nur echt zwischen Eden Gufi is a leis Ato von Amiyut, was in sich Chesik in der Avede von Afatzes HaTorah. The mean is so far he's still only from the minority of people who work in spreading Yiddish, spreading their mitzvah Torah. If Rabbi what's something else, certainly you're a minority in those that spread the Mayonas, which is the wellspring of Chassidus. Can it the farmachem bezich hacheshmus? So a person can make a counting as there's zuwarten bis die Schwierigkeiten alamas vesterim was sich that you shouldn't do anything. You wait till all these obstacles and hardships will finish. The noch what the mamshel sein have does, they will continue. Them come the Roma, and now comes the lesson from before. And Davis Nazar Elam v'chol HaShabbat v'nisave v'chol rega v'rega v'ayim efes amuch mamash v'nam bebish. You have to know that the world and everything that's in it, every second, gets again recreated from nothing, complete nothing, by the Eibishter. Who's the first being and has no cause what made him. He is the being, the essential being. If every second the world gets created by who? By the Eibishter himself. And which Pshat the Eibishter, which is the source of everything. So how could there be something that should go against the Eibishter? How could it say, I can't teach Torah. I can't do Afat Samayonis. The situation of the Welt is so that I can't. How could that be? How could there be such a thing? Why is that part of Welt that you say it disturbs you? How is that thing here? Because the Eibishter is making it this second. So how could it be against you? Those was as eine dome nagdim and almost for stadium of the Aveda. I do see that there are opponents and there are things that cover up and they are cover on the Aveda that you do. You have to know a symptom is not kipshut. It looks like it's not good. It looks like there's a concealment. It looks like there's a symptom, but symptom not kipshut. It says nit kenemes erhelen. It's not a real concealment. As the kavana dabei is as es obazich megalo zayin mchilik kamal mamish. The purpose is what the goal is that you should reveal within yourself your neshama, your chilik kamal mamish was gefinzich in him, that's in you. Und die Keiches wird der Rabbeim und nimmer eingelegt, and the Keiches that the Rabbeim put into you. Und demult wird der Kipshim Mashallah ben, then you conquer and you control it. You rule over it. You control the things which seem to be concealing, being confusing you, disturbing you. Really, if you think about it, if you realize it's all the Eibishter, you'll see how you'll be able to do it. Every Yid does this. He rules over his daladamas, his area around it, by spreading Yiddishkeit, including spreading Chassidus. We hasten more even the coming of Mashiach when everyone will see with their physical eyes. And he quotes the pasuk that the Medrash said, how we see the word Hurat means ruling from the word V'yerit miyom ad yom menor adaf seretz. But that will be when Mashiach will come. V'yerit miyom, Mashiach will rule from one yom to another yom, uminor from the river to the end of the world. V'sameifen from all orders deyas abai kamayim yom achasim, in a way that the world will be full of knowledge of Hashem, like water covers the sea. For mesvetzayim v'nigla kvei davaya, it will be the revelation of Hashem. The truth is, even now, the world is full of Hashem. It's not revealed. That the covenant of Hashem will be revealed, and everybody will see, all flesh together will see that the words of Hashem, the mouth of Hashem spoke. This Gilui Lakus will be, then we'll see how the Welt is really a Lakus.